So Dennis Prager wants to tell us what makes America a great moral achievement. Apparently, America is unique amongst nations in our approach to morality, apparently. So, you know what? Let's just go ahead and hear him out. Let's just hear what Pennis Drager has to say to us.
Human nature is not basically good. I've talked about this on many occasions. I have a PragerU video on it. I want to make something clear. There is good in human nature. There's no question about that. Otherwise, you couldn't explain any goodness. There is goodness on Earth, after all.
Okay.
To understand what is happening in America today, this is the key thing to understand. If you understand how flawed human nature is, you will understand what a moral achievement America is.
So wait, could you explain? Could you please explain what's flawed about human nature? Because, like, don't get me wrong, human beings are flawed, yes, but you're gonna have to quantify this. Now, I don't know if we're gonna get a quantification of this. I don't know if we're gonna get a justification. I know we're gonna get that shit-eating grin of his, but you'll have to explain what's flawed about human nature, because it might even be that me and Dennis Prager don't agree on what he considers to be flaws in human nature. Honestly. So let's go ahead and hear him out. My prediction is that we're not going to get proper context, and he's just going to carry on forward.
That's the key to what I want you to understand today. See, if you have really mundane ingredients and make a terrific meal out of it, that's a big achievement. If you have spectacular ingredients, it's not as big an achievement. Given the ingredients of human nature, what America baked itself into, if you will, cooked itself into, is an astonishing achievement.
How? Okay, but you have not yet quantified it. You've merely said that the ingredients that were used for human nature are mundane. Now, I don't think they're mundane. We're literally made up of fucking stardust. I don't see how that's mundane. But apparently, Dennis Prager thinks it is. Without listing what these ingredients are, he wants to tell us that something spectacular was made out of it, and that's what makes it special. Now, this is a very religious way of viewing this. This is a very judeo-christian way of viewing this, where, like, humans are incredibly flawed, but somehow we can make good things come out of it. But, again, I want to emphasize, without any actual substance here, this is just a platitude. Like, I could list off some flaws of human nature. I could list off that we tend to be very greedy, we tend to be very self-centered, we tend to resort to violence when diplomacy could be a much better alternative. But, you see, the thing is, though, is that I'm actually quantifying those things, and I don't think necessarily any of that's human nature. It's a combination of nature and nurture that leads us to those conclusions, and how we can overcome them. I would be perfectly willing to sit down and have a nuanced discussion about this. But in Dennis Prager's worldview, it seems like these things are intrinsic and unavoidable flaws in the human condition, which I don't think is a really healthy reading of humanity.
But if you think people are basically good, which a lot of people, especially the well-educated, because they don't understand much.
Wait, what? Wait. Dennis, did you just say the well-educated don't understand much? Don't you literally run a faux university? Dennis, I have to ask, is this just an anti-intellectualism take? Because, like, it reads to me as anti-intellectualism. I'm, like, 90% certain I'm supposed to read that as anti-intellectualism.
Unfortunately, I mean that literally.
Of course you do.
They think, well, human nature is good, so of course it's astonishing how terrible America is. If you start out with the appreciation of the raw material, then you marvel at how good America became.
So, wait, hold on. When you factor the raw material in, you're assuming that they didn't. What about your take that they believe that people are inherently good, or at least for the most part good, necessitates that they did not look at the raw material? I'm fairly certain that in either case, you could make a position based off of looking at the raw materials. They just have a different value judgment of those raw materials than you do. But the way you frame it, it's that these well-educated people, in your estimation, have completely dismissed the raw materials. They've dismissed that entirely. They don't appreciate it. When it could be that they might have the exact same framing device that you do. They just have a different takeaway from it. This is like... I'm going to show my inner nerddom for a second here. But if any of you ever played Sonic Adventure 2, do you remember how throughout the entirety of the game, Shadow believed that human beings were disgusting and deserved to be killed because of the one instance of prejudice that he dealt with when GUN came on the Space Colony Ark and killed Maria and everybody else on the Ark, and he had to be ejected to Earth? Do you remember the conversation he had with Amy that changed his mind? When Amy literally had the same mentality that Maria did, and it shifted his worldview entirely into something a lot more healthy? Do you remember that? Because I remember that. Amy literally said in that scene, people are basically good so long as they never give up on their wishes. So long as they don't essentially let themselves fall into despair. That's a video game. That's a video game's reading of reality. And it is more positive and also probably more realistic than Dennis Prager's. At least here. It is amazing. When Dennis Prager is more edgy dumb shit than Shadow.
Of course America has bad aspects to it. Of course it does. How could it not? Look at the raw material. Human beings.
So, when you frame something like this, Dennis, when you frame it like this, you get to excuse practically everything. Anything bad that happens that humans do, you can then just excuse it by, well, look, they're humans. They're flawed. Of course they did. Of course this is what happened. We're humans. This is what anti-intellectualism looks like. This is what happens when somebody takes the laziest approach possible, and through that incredibly lazy approach, they can come to very convenient conclusions. When you just take the approach of, well, human nature's flawed, so of course everything we're going to make is flawed. That is a one-stop shop of an ideology. It takes no effort to come to those conclusions. It takes no amount of thinking. And it's perfect for the way that PragerU likes to frame everything that it does. Easily digestible, stupidly simple, and completely missing the point.
What nation, what country, what tribe, what group has not had a profoundly flawed society? That's why, among other things, you have to compare America to other places. Who made as free a place for as many people from as many backgrounds? Nobody. That's not to say that...
Are you saying that other countries don't have freedom? So wait, you're going to make the argument that Canada is less free than the United States, that the UK is less free than the United States. You haven't defined freedom. You haven't defined in which ways people are free. Are you defining freedom by merely the ability to exercise negative rights? Because if that's the only way you're going to define freedom, I don't find that to be a particularly useful metric. If you use only negative rights as your metric, then human beings are basically free to exist. And that's about the extent of it. They are free to exist, nothing more. But go ahead, Dennis. Don't define freedom. Don't define human flaws. Don't define human nature. Don't define Americans' morals. Don't define any of this stuff. Just merely engage in platitude building, engage in the most broad strokes generalizations that you can possibly do, in order to appease your audience. You're wanting patriotic Americans to hear this, because to them, it's confirmation bias. They get to have confirmation bias in that their country is doing the best it can because they're doing better than everybody else. What this fails to argue is that even if we accept the premise that America is better than every other country, if we are doing better than every other country, that does not give us an excuse to stop improving. That does not give us an excuse to fix our own shit. As Eldritch Horror Jordan Peterson would say, that does not give us an excuse to not clean our room. However, if somebody were to take this video and internalize it completely, they could come to the conclusion that America's doing better than everybody else. So what's the problem? What are you complaining about?
All Americans are good. A lot of Americans are awful. In fact, more today than perhaps ever before in some ways, which is a very sad thing for me to say, because it's a very painful subject.
If it's a painful subject, then maybe you should sign it.
Given, again, this raw material, it is astonishing what we made here, what Americans made here.
Okay. I am not essential lessons in human behavior, but you've given us none of those lessons in this snippet. I've learned nothing from this snippet. You've functionally said nothing. Just justified your worldview with fluff. You've not incentivized me to go watch the entire Fire Sat, Bennis. You've incentivized me to make fun of you. Completely and totally. But I wanted to at least take a moment to look at this video and analyze what little of it there actually is, what little substance there was in the video itself, and see what you guys think. What do you guys think of Dennis? Do you think that he actually said anything substantial? Do you think that there was anything that we gleaned from this other than that he likes platitudes and that this is supposed to appeal to blind American patriotism? Because if you got something out of it differently than that, I'd like to know in the comment section below. So go ahead and let me know. But with all that said, if you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell notification icon so that you can know when new episodes are being released. If you want to support the channel and what I do, please go ahead and check the description below. You will find links to my affiliate and also links to PayPal and also Patreon and all that other stuff. Any way that you would possibly want to support me, you can do so via the description down below. But, as always, everyone, enjoy, and insert into video tagline here.